Hi folks, welcome back to another Tuesday, and it is Hobby Nightmares on a Tuesday this week because we did a full recap of Warhammer Fest yesterday on the Monday. So, decided to push forwards the Hobby Nightmares to today. If you like what I do, the subscribe button is down below, the Patreon button is down below, and of course if you're going to get any models for the next few weeks, make sure you go to Composite Games, use the promo code Northern Exile down below to get yourself 5% off at checkout. Also, the Discord link is now permanent. You can use it, it's down below. Should be working all of the time. I shouldn't need to do any new ones now. We're all done. We're now at a server status where we can actually have a permanent link, which is nice. So there you go. Down below. It's free. Head on there, have a little chat to people, and off we go. Hobby Nightmares time. Let's jump right in, shall we? First of all, the email address for Hobby Nightmares is down below. If you send me a personal message on Discord, I might not read it for a long time because I might not see it, because it gets buried by a lot of other things. The email address is there for that reason, and that's to give me your Hobby Nightmares. Or if there's something that you think I should cover on the channel or anything like that, then email me for new ideas. That'd be pretty cool. And of course, patrons get a one-on-one inbox on the Astral Backers part of the Discord to talk to me about ideas for the channel and things like that. So, moving on. Nathaniel says, "Hi North, I'm a huge fan ever since I stumbled upon your channel. Cheers, man. I've binged all of your Hobby Nightmares and I'm a proud channel member. Good lad. My name is Nathaniel, not to be confused with a certain Mr. Garrow. And I don't mind you using my real name when reciting my letter. There we go. This won't be a sordid tale, chock full of endless terror, but more of a telling of my own journey through the 40k hobby. It might not have your audience on the edge of their seats, but I like to fancy myself as something of a raconteur. So hopefully my dry cynicism will be appreciated." Okay, I think there's going to be a long gripe about how things have gone along in the hobby. Let's see what points this guy makes about the hobby and if they're salient or not. There are some cringe stories later on, by the way, if any of you are wondering where those are. "I first started playing 40k in the late 90s after my friend group at school became enamoured with it. I lived in Salt Lake City and in the Valley, in the great state of Utah. At the time, the only place I knew of to buy Games Workshop products was a rather unfortunate hole in the wall named Comics Utah. They're long since out of business, and, screw them besides. They carried a wide variety of products from the eponymous comic books, to Magic the Gathering cards, to miscellaneous war games. The store, thankfully, also had a gaming area, where I couldn't wait to unleash my some 41st millennium mayhem with my friends. I took to collecting a small force of Eldar. I had not yet been made aware that they were effeminate space elves mincing about the warp. I put the models together, which in the 90s was no small task, with many of the models being pewter, and myself becoming accustomed to my newly pubescent hands. Dude, I hated the pewter models. I still remember a brand new Wraith Lord that I got from back in the day, a metal one. My god, those were so frustrating to put together. It was so annoying. And with it being super glue as well, oh god, it was horrible. Metal just shouldn't be used in that many products, to be honest with you. Not heavy ones, anyway. If it's models you're going to snap together, fair enough, but not huge models that are big and heavy. They're going to, putting strain on different parts of the model. Doing it in metal, not good. Not a good idea. Anyway. I have never been artistic or had any talent for painting or drawing. Hell, I can barely write legibly. Knowing my own limitations, I opted to not paint by my burgeoning Eldar force and cut straight to the bloodshed. After all, I was playing with my friends, not attending a grand tournament or something. Jump to a dreary Saturday afternoon, where I had convinced my father to drive me to Comics Utah so I could meet my friends and bask in the glory of wanton tabletop destruction. I strode towards the back of the store, making my way to the gaming tables. But before I could dive headlong into a little of the old ultra-violence, I was startled from my reverie by the store manager. He says, "You can't play here with unpainted armies," he bellowed, spittle and various bits of fried food spilling over his gaping maw. This outburst confirmed my suspicion he would place squarely on the spectrum. I'd like you to picture the scene. There I stood, a shoebox lined with paper towels in my hands, my precious Eldar inside. I didn't know this man. I was a lone child in a store. I was socially awkward, chubby, sensitive, and shy. That is, a Warhammer fan, basically. After being accosted by a grown adult over the state of my toy soldiers, I couldn't think of anything to do aside from turn straight around and walk out of the store. Hopefully before anybody noticed tears welling up in my eyes. I then proceeded to sit on the curb outside of the store for 3 hours before my father returned to give me a ride home. I didn't even have the heart to tell my father what had happened. I simply sat in the passenger seat, stared blankly, and clutched my shoebox. Okay, this goes on, but before we go on, I've said it many times on the channel about how you behave as a manager. You need to be very, very, very careful. I remember one time. This is actually painful. I don't like this memory at all. I did make it up to him. I remember one time. I think I've said it before on the channel. When I was a staff member at Games Workshop, and we were left on a Sunday to deal with everybody in the store. And I mean, this is a rammed store on a beginner Sunday. Kids shouting and screaming everywhere. Everybody running around trying to sort stuff out. Nobody knowing what to do, and I'm trying to hold it all together. I'm not the manager at this point, but, I think my manager at the time thought it's a sink or swim exercise, so he just left me to it. Anyway, one kid there was quite obnoxious and quite annoying, but harmless. Just a harmless kid, just a kid being a kid. And he asked me the same question one too many times. And I snapped at him. I didn't swear at him, I just snapped at him. The answer again, no, it's this, For God's sake, I've told you a couple of times, it's this, right? The look on this kid's face, like he looked like he wanted the world to just implode and it to swallow him up. He looked so distraught and upset. And kind of like, whoa, that kind of a look. He was in like 12, 13. So in the end, I was converting a few models at the time, using loads of Necrons and stuff, and he was a Necron player, so I ended up just giving him a Necron Lord, just being like, there you go. I'm sorry. I explained it to him, though, because he was like 12, maybe 13, and I explained it to him. I was like, look, man, really sorry about that. I'm really stressed. You just asked me the wrong question at the wrong time, I guess. Yeah, I have a Necron Lord. Do you want to play a game? We'll play a game later. And we did play a game later, and it was fine. And he had fun, and it was great, and we salvaged the situation. But, you need to be so, so careful about how you approach younger customers in the store. I don't think it's said enough about GW, about one of the big things. Everyone says the main thing that you need to do as a store manager or as a staff member is deal with members of the public and angry man children who aren't getting what they want out of their toy soldiers. But it's not really. It's mainly the kids. It's mainly the kids. They're the main annoyance. Like under 17 or under kids are the main annoyance in the store. When I say that, I'm not having a go at you specifically if you're that age, by the way. Number one, you shouldn't be watching this video, it's adult only, but it's not really adult only, but you know what I mean. Lots of swearing and stuff that you probably shouldn't know. But number two, I'm not having a go. Honestly, I'm not having a go. Tons of them were really nice people. It's just like, you do get the odd one. You go to high school, if you're in high school, you know who I mean. The obnoxious nerd, you know what I mean. And it can be quite a grating experience, and you need to learn how to deal with that. I learned by knowing what the tells of my other staff members were, and giving them breaks. So if it was just me and them in the store, they would give me a look, or they would tap me on the shoulder, and they'd say, listen, I need 5 minutes. And I'd say, yeah, no problem. They would go and sit in the staff room for 5 minutes, calm down, acclimatise, use the phone, do whatever, 5 minutes, and then come back, and they're ready to go. I would do it as well. I would literally go, I need 5 minutes. I would go. I would do whatever. I would chill out, 5 minutes, and then come back. And that's just how we got through it on a Sunday or any days where it was getting a bit overwrought in the store. That's just how we did it. But you need to figure out a way to do it, because the main reason is these kids don't deserve to have their hobby taken away from them by some mardy person who life and, let's be honest, Games Workshop has rubbed down to the nubs, right? That's not fair on them. the hobby should be a sanctuary place for everybody. And if that's not that way for somebody, or you taint that for somebody, that's not cool. Especially not if you're a custodian of the hobby wearing Games Workshop gear, right? Cool. Moving on. Needless to say, this made the thought of ever painting my army seem an insurmountable task. I was far too intimidated to even consider it. I lost all interest in playing 40k, as neither my friends or I had the patience or space in our homes that we could monopolise for several hours at a time for a game or painting. Sadly, my Eldar army sits festering in my parents' basement, still clad in their original pewter or plastic. Fast forward to November 2022. I'm now 38 years old and no longer socially awkward or afraid to stand up for myself. My self-confidence has been bolstered by maturity, musculature, and Marcus Aurelius. Yeah, always, man. Yet sadly, Warhammer was now a far smaller part of my life. One day, I was approached by a co-worker, and he asked if I was interested in tabletop gaming. So, the Marcus Aurelius thing, yeah, that's cool. I like it. Also, make sure that you get a good translation of meditations, and you get the best translations of meditations are the ones where there are actual books of somebody talking about meditations as you read it. You know what I mean? There's a few really good ones out there, and feel free to email me and I'll give you some good suggestions. And also on the Marcus Aurelius thing, there are people who were saying that I don't like Jordan Peterson a while ago. I don't know why they were saying that, because I've never said I don't like Jordan Peterson, like, ever. I made the point of a little while ago that rather than, I think it was with Pirate King's video, rather than reading or listening to Jordan Peterson, just go and read the Stoics, because that's essentially what he's talking about. And the reason why I say that is because I feel quite a lot of the time Jordan Peterson likes to use very verbose language and very long words that I don't even think he understands, just to make himself sound a bit more intelligent than he probably is, right? Whereas Marcus Aurelius and other people like that, they boil it down to its base parts and say, here's Stoicism, here's what you should do with your life to be better and feel better as a man, go out and do it. Jordan Peterson, when he does choose to do that, he's amazing. When he chooses to go and literally boil the points down and tell you what he means specifically, outright, out front, that's great. But he tends to meander around and use really out there examples, and he tends to labour around the point without actually making it. You know, as somebody who marks essays for a living, if I marked one of his essays and it's how he talks, I would be putting big red lines through it. You don't need this, you don't need this, you don't need this, you don't need this. What's your point? What's your point? Get to the point. That's why I don't recommend people I don't personally enjoy. I think Jordan Peterson makes a lot of salient points, and I agree with him on almost all of his points, right? I just don't think he's very good to listen to. It's a taste thing, right? It's not a message thing, it's a taste thing. And people are so partisan these days, they can't really separate one for the two. I don't know whether they don't have the brains to do it, or whether they're doing it because they're just ignorant. But, like, it's annoying, right? I can agree with what somebody's saying whilst thinking they're bad at what they do. That's fine. As a therapist, I'm sure he's great. Or whatever, you know, as somebody who's into mental health, I'm sure he's great at that on a one-to-one basis if he's your kind of a guy. He's not for me, though, and he wouldn't be my therapist. He wouldn't be my, whatever. I wouldn't get along with him. I'd just be like, yeah, I agree with what you're saying, but I find you irritating to listen to, so I'm going to go find me another therapist. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some people just don't gel. It's fine. I could sit there and have a conversation with them, no problem. But, like, you know, it's just some people don't gel. And, you know, I'd much rather read about Marcus Aurelius and people, especially when you get a really good book that's going over the Stoics. I want to actually get this because I wanted people to watch it. Stoics. It was amazing. It was an amazing book I read a while ago. I'm going to try and find it. I swear, Ryan Holiday. That's it. Courage is Calling. Ryan Holiday and other things like that. So what Ryan Holiday does is that he takes Marcus Aurelius, he takes all of these big ideas from the Stoics, and he lets you read along with him during the book. So in the book, he'll go chapter by chapter. Here's chapter 1 of Marcus Aurelius, the Meditations. Bang. Here's what he meant. here's what he's trying to say, and here's what I think you should take for your life, because going forwards and things like that. And he goes through the entire thing, and it's such an enriching book. Just read, go and get Ryan Holiday's books and devour them. They're sensational, absolutely brilliant. Anyway, moving on. So this co-worker says, he asked if I was interested in tabletop gaming. Like Warhammer, I stammered, hoping he knew what the hell I was talking about. And he did. That was exactly the game he was hoping to play together. I had maintained an interest in the 40k universe throughout the years, playing many of the PC games, enjoying YouTube videos, etc. I had always told myself that I should get back into playing again someday, but never had the kick in the ass to actually do so, until now. That's awesome. Fortunately, there is a Warhammer store barely a mile from my house, and so I decided to poke my head inside to see if I dared rekindle my love for the hobby. The second I entered the store, I was greeted by the friendly manager. Yes, somebody well trained. Come on. Yes. He introduced himself as Ryan, his real name, as I want him to be recognised for being such an awesome steward of the hobby. I filled him in with some of my backstory and expressed an interest in starting to play again. We chatted and socialised for over 20 minutes. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I was the only patron in the store. Ryan was so excited about Warhammer, and I could tell he really loved it. After we were done chatting, I picked up Dark Angel's Combat Patrol. Of course, I was still petrified of painting my models. I expressed this to Ryan. Not only did he inform me that I was more than welcome to play in the store with unpainted models, what a Chad, but that he would personally show me that painting wasn't so scary. That's the thing you need to do, right? That's genius. That is genius. Okay, I'm going to tell you this now. Ryan doesn't want you playing in his store with unpainted models. He doesn't want that. Because if somebody from the outside, from head office, comes in and sees unpainted models in the store, they're going to get a bee in their bonnet, and he's going to get a bollocking for it, right? He doesn't want you playing with unpainted models in the store. But you know what he's done, though? He said, feel free to play with those models in the store, but I'm going to show you that it's not as hard as you think. Right? He's basically making a bet with you. He's showing you that painting is really, really, really easy. Or at least getting it to tabletop standard, it is easy, and it is. Getting stuff to tabletop standard, not gold demon standard, not like in your on your mantelpiece standard. I'm talking tabletop standard. That's how I paint. Tabletop standard, 40k. Looks good, looks cool. People want to look at it. People want to touch it. Whatever. Not touch it, but you know what I mean. That's pretty easy to do. You can learn that in like 5 to 6 months. You can learn that, and I know, and that's slow. I learned it. It took me a long time to get to that standard, but I'm a really slow learner when it comes to like painting and things. But he doesn't want you playing with those models in the store. So he's teaching you. He's giving you the skills to play with painted models in the store. Okay, that's great. Teach a man to fish. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant technique there used by the manager. I wish more managers would use it, because Games Workshop do actually teach you to do this. They teach you to do this. They teach you to provide solid alternatives to people in the store. If you want them to exhibit certain behaviours, show them those certain behaviours, get them to model those certain behaviours, get them to mantle them, and then move on and see what they do. If they then don't take those behaviours, do it again, and do it again, and do it again. And if they still won't do it, that's when the warning starts and saying, look, this is months down the line, though. Months down the line. This is perfect. This is really, really, really good. And I bet you painted your models, and I bet you played with painted models in the store now. You kill people with kindness is what you do as a Games Workshop manager. That's what you're supposed to do anyway. I was sick of the fear of painting hanging over me, and I felt this would be a great opportunity for some personal growth. So, the next Tuesday, I came back to the store with Ryan, and he sat down with me and showed me how to paint my squad of intercessors. It went great. I won't bore you with any pictures, as I'm sure the paint jobs are pretty pedestrian, but I'm proud of the work that I did, and that I was finally able to overcome my anxiety. I found I actually enjoy painting even as much as playing. Good lad, and you chose Dark Angels as well. That's a really good choice to start your painting journey in 40k. Very simple. Very good. Very nice. Blocky. Simple. Brilliant. And it's dark as well. Dark colours are always easier, and I bet you got them looking to a pretty good standard. Excellent. The only thing easier for me is metal. That's why the Astral Blades are metal. because, you know, they're silver, because it's just the easiest colour to paint, as far as I'm concerned. I wish that I had someone like Ryan to guide me back when I was 14 and new to the hobby. I'm thankful that I've got the proper introduction to the hobby, even though it's a little late. I currently have an 18-month-old son, and I can't wait to introduce him to Warhammer. I'll be his shepherd, and nothing could make me happier than enjoying a game with my son someday. Excellent, dude. And what a nice ending to the story. Marvellous. Absolutely marvellous. Let me have a little drink of my tea here. Alrighty. I'm sure we'll get some cringe soon. Lightning says, Salutations, Exile North. Thank you. This is a short story that is representative of behaviour of a minority at 40k tournaments I frequented. So a minority at 40k tournaments are spoiling tournaments for Mr. Lightning here. I'm just going to reread that again, because I think that my stupidness of my mouth got in the way of me actually reading that sentence. So, Lightning says, Salutations, Exile North. This is a story that is representative of a behaviour of a minority at 40k tournaments I frequented. This happened, I think, during 6th or 7th, at a doubles tournament at Warhammer World. We faced two guys. First of the partnership was a great guy. Second, a plank. He was that guy. Okay. At the start of his turn, he loudly proclaims the units he would kill, that one and that one. What? Okay. I'm now seeing why I was struggling to read the first sentence of this, because it's higgledy-piggledy. Okay. This happened, I think, during 6th or 7th edition at a doubles tournament at Warhammer World. We faced two guys. The first one of the partnership was a great guy. The second was a bit of a plank. I'm adding words in here to make the sentence make sense. And he was a that guy. Okay. I'm guessing that English isn't your first language, but that's just a guess. At the start of his turn, he loudly proclaims what units he will kill. As in, he says, that one by at least turn 5. He caused 1 wound and was super salty. It's hilarious. Don't call out what you're going to kill in a dice game. Like, you're begging for the dice gods to be like, no. He just looked like a knob. This is the attitude that grinds my gears, and he was at this level for the whole game, and despite his partner being quite a top guy. But here is the turbo plankery. He had a Psyker with Psychic Shriek, and recently Games Workshop had released a set of beta rules that recommended that you would have to roll to hit with this type of power. But he said no. But I said obviously the intention was you should, and I just kind of short-circuited at this apparent lack of logic. He acted like a petulant child, and after a back and forth, we agreed to roll off. But he lost, and went a bit apeshit. That beta rule became confirmed later on. We then went on to lose the game quite closely, but not due to this. Me and my gaming partner still recall this guy in our games, usually by, before turn 1, pointing at least 6 or 7 units out and saying they're going to be dead at the end of turn 1, and chuckling. I still see this guy occasionally at events and laugh to myself. I have many more stories to tell. Please, yeah, send them in, but make sure that you look over them, or get somebody to look over them for you, because that was quite hard to read. Good story, though. The thing is, this is the problem with beta rules, and this is why I know Games Workshop don't do them. I know people have called for them, even on this channel. People have said, why don't they just beta test rules by giving them to the people in the hobby to test out and do it that way. This is why, because you will get douchebags like this who will say, well, it's recommended I use it that way, but I'm going to use it in any way that I see fit. That's not how you're meant to play the game. We can't trust wargamers because we're not allowed to have anything nice, and that's why they're never going to do rules that way. That's why. Moving on. Wild Alaskan says, greetings, O northernmost of exiles. It's your favourite Wild Alaskan, here to tell you about the 40k tournament I participated in yesterday. The good, the great, and the inevitable hobby nightmare. Okay. My Zerathian 401st Mechanised Infantry, thank you for putting that in your story, by the way. That was very easy to say. Go fuck yourself. My Zarathrian 401st mechanized... Are you guys trying to trip me up? Yeah. If your story is well written, I can read a word straight away. No problem. It's when it's higgledy-pickledy and read like it was a load of words thrown like shit from a deranged person at a wall. That's when I start to struggle. My Zarathrian 401st Mechanized Infantry rolled up in their Lemon Russes and Rogol Dawns, ready to punish the enemies of man in the name of him on terror. In a strange twist of fate, of warp trickery, we ended up fighting other Imperial armies for all 3 rounds. Okay. Round 1. The good. First match was against my friend, whom I've not played against in some time. He was playing an Iron Hand Successor chapter, and our game was an incredibly close one. I managed to stay 5 points or so ahead of him every round until the last, where he pulled ahead and won by a mere 6 points. We both counted up the models we had remaining on the table and found that, out of a 2,000 point list, we had almost exactly 400 points each remaining. It was an absolute bloodbath and a very close game. I walked away feeling good, even though I had lost. Well, you didn't really lose, dude. That's the point. That's what I like about certain parts of 40k in modern times. You both got around 400 points left. That wouldn't be considered any kind of a loss or a win in real military standards, you know what I mean? Unless there was some sort of absolute giga objective that you failed to get, which it doesn't seem like there was. Anyway, moving on. Round 2. The Great. First, a bit of background. For my second game, back in 8th edition, I played a casual game with a friend when my unit of Bullygrins came under heavy fire. As the only melee-oriented unit in my army, they were a priority target. Each Bullygrin fell one by one, except for the last. Holding his massive slab shield in front of him, he pressed on into the hail of bullets, walked up to the nearest Razorback and smashed it to pieces with his maul. The ensuing explosion left the lone Bullygrin unconscious, but created a hole in the enemy lines that ultimately led to a victory for the Guard. The Commissar, having witnessed the Bullygrin's incredible bravery or massive stupidity, called for a medic for him. When asked his name, the Bullygrin admitted he didn't have one. The Commissar declared he be given a name, Leroy, and a barbed wire tattoo on his up arm to let everybody know that he was as tough as nails. Brilliant. I love that little bit of lore. Fast forward a couple of years, and since the most recent Guard Codex came out, Leroy has been promoted to Bodyguard for my platoon command squad. He continued to perform feats of incredible bravery or massive stupidity, and round 2 of yesterday's tournament was no different. The command squad, accompanied by a squad of Cadian Shock, pressed the enemy's right flank, and in an attempt to secure a rear line objective. The Shock troops were quickly lost, and Leroy did an admirable job guarding the squad until a Lemon Russ could make it through to provide covering fire. With the enemy suppressed, the command squad was able to take the objective and hold it. And then, the unthinkable happened. The command squad watched in horror as, in the opposite corner of the battlefield, the air began to shimmer. From a hole in nothingness stepped a trio of silver-armoured Astartes piloting massive mech suits. 2 of the mech suits were wielding huge glowing hammers, and a third, clearly their leader, wielding a glowing sword the size of a Lemon Russ turret cannon. They immediately opened fire, decimating the platoon squads that had been holding objectives in the area and damaging the Pride of Zarathia, a Rogol Dawn battle tank. The Pride's commander reacted immediately and turned the tank to face the oncoming Dreadknights. With the Lucky 13 and Mortis Demonica sighted in their main cannons. 2 of the Dreadknights were overwhelmed by the tank fire, leaving only the Grandmaster standing. As the Mortis Demonica acquired the Grandmaster in her Auspexes and loaded another Vanquisher anti-tank round, the air shimmered again, and the Dreadknight disappeared just as quickly as it had appeared. This is how the game goes when you're using rules properly, right? And you're melding it in to the story of the battle. This is how cool it is. By the way, this is why I play narrative games. There are 2 types of people, right? Do you know when you're playing top-down CRPGs like Baldur's Gate or whatever, from that era, even your ones like Pillars of Eternity and all of those, you have the story going on in front of you, on the screen, and in the bottom left-hand corner there will be a text box that's showing you what's happening, what's being rolled for, and what's being missed, as the computer does most of the heavy lifting for you, because you're clicking attack, you're clicking all your different tactics and things like that, but the actual meat and two veg is in the bottom left-hand corner. I'm the guy who looks at the screen and enjoys the story that's happening and does tactical things to make the story go in different directions, right? There are other players, mainly tournament players, but there are other players who love the bottom left-hand box and all of the minutiae of what's going on underneath the hood. That doesn't interest me, and clearly it doesn't really interest Wild Alaskan either, which is why I'm enjoying reading this far more than I would somebody going, I rolled a d6 and I took a -2, and the Dread Knight disappeared, and I don't know. I think that rule's pretty bullshit, actually. I think you should just, But anyway, I rolled a 6 to hit again, and then I hit him, and then he rolled a 2+, but it wasn't a 2+ because I have 3 armor penetration, so it went to 5+, but he also has a 4+ invulnerable save, so it went back to a 4+, and blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? Like that's... Yeah. That's when the game grinds to a halt, and that's when it sucks. At least for me, guys. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm a narrative guy. And then... the Dread Knight reappeared, scant meters away from Leroy, oh no, and the command squad. The Dread Knight fired its heavy side cannon into the nearby Lemon Rust, disabling it. It then opened up on the command squad with its Gatling silencer. Leroy, expecting the incoming fire, planted his enormous slab shield at his feet and held fast as the massive incoming rounds pinged off of it. The huge Dread Knight charged at Leroy, its nemesis greatsword raised overhead to deliver a killing blow. But that, too, rang harmlessly off of the slab shield. With the Dread Knight on the back foot, Leroy raised his maul and delivered a devastating sideways blow into the Dread Knight's knee. As the machine twisted and crumpled, Leroy delivered a final blow to the Dread Knight's reactor, shouting, "Begone!" The air shimmered, the Grandmaster disappeared, and the platoon commander chuckled to himself. "Back to Titan with you," he said aloud, to no one in particular. For his commendable service to the throne of terror, in the name of the most holy God Emperor of mankind, Leroy will be rewarded with something, as soon as I decide what to paint on him. Suggestions are welcome. Give him a mount, man. Get a bully grin, convert him, and put him on a mount. So you can have 2 Leroys now. You can have a Leroy on foot, and you can have a Leroy that costs more points that is mounted. This guy deserves his own rules. In fact, email me. We'll go over them together. We'll give him some rules for 10th edition. That'll be awesome. Anyway. And now for the real reason you're here. Round 3, the Nightmare. In the 3rd round, I was paired against a custodes player. I knew I needed to stay far away from him and shoot as much as possible, while still achieving objectives. The problem started during deployment. He would place a unit, then adjust the models, moving this one a millimetre this way, and that one a millimetre that way. Then he'd check lines from across the table, and adjust another model or 2. Oh my god, one of these players. Again, we're coming across that player who likes to look at the bottom left-hand screen. Here we are, okay? Here we are. The fun grinds to a halt. Ensuring that each one was perfect before declaring that unit placed. We were each on a 90-minute timer for the round. Had he spent the first 20 of his just deploying. When the first turn came, I found that no matter how I moved any of my units, I could not shoot at anything in his army except for one rhino. And when I destroyed that in a single shot, the occupants went into some ruins where I couldn't see them. When it came to his movement phase, it was a repeat of his deployment. Every single model had to be placed just so, then checked and rechecked so that I had absolutely no line of sight. He made a couple of small mistakes, such as moving a unit a little out of place, and despite it being a tournament, I allowed him to just readjust them. My second turn came and went, with me again not really being allowed to play the game. Yeah, dude, listen. Here's the thing. There was a thing in football back in the day, where there was a football team called Arsenal back in the day, when Arsenal were really good. And they used to play some really nice football. And so, teams would turn up and defend for 90 minutes, and nearly kick them off the pitch, right? Now, Arsene Wenger, the manager of Arsenal at the time, would say, this is ridiculous, and my players being kicked off the pitch, they're being fouled all of the time, this isn't good for the fans, it's not a spectacle. But the opposition manager would say, listen mate, what do you want us to do? Just turn up and let you win 6-0? We can't beat you at that game, so we beat you at ours. You know, so that it kind of makes sense in a way. And I don't think anybody reading this would say, hey, you need to play the game a certain way or you're a dick. Nobody's saying that. Nobody's saying that. But there is a certain, how do I put it? There's a certain honour to it. I want to know, I'll use a better word than that, but there's a way and a means of doing things. You can be one of these players who looks into the bottom left-hand side of the screen and loves the minutiae going on under the hood. You know what I mean? That's no problem. But, like, to do it to the extreme, that you just want to stop anything the opponent can do from happening, means to me you're an enemy of the game because you're an enemy of the narrative. At the end of the day, this game's about telling stories. This whole thing's about telling stories. Really cool stories on the tabletop that you get to go home and reminisce about for years to come. Without that, there is no game. We're just rolling dice. And we're accumulating results. Right? That's all we're doing. Take away the magic from this, and it becomes really boring. It becomes moving around, toy soldiers around, and reading lists. And doing maths. None of which is really that fun. Right? So be the minutia player. Be the tactically astute player. Be the player who doesn't let the opponents use what their strongest strength is. No problem. But play the game, dude. There's playing the game, and then there's playing the game. Alright? This guy could have still done this, but played it normally. Played the game normally. Still won pretty handily, but played it normally. I'm getting from this reading here that the Custodes player was always going to stand a very good chance of winning, but that he went to the extra mile to make sure you could do nothing with your game. That's bullshit. And again, I know, I just used that example, what do you want him to do? Just turn up and walk into your firing line? No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, unlike an actual sport, we're here to have fun. Well, not here to have fun, but unlike a Premier League game where there's millions of pounds at stake for where you finish in the league table, we're here to have fun. Alright? We're here to just throw some dice and watch things explode. By all means, use your tactical nous to get an advantage, but don't abuse the mechanics of the game to bullshit your opponents into boredom surrender. That's my takeaway, right? Anyway. I'm just going to have a little drink of my tea here. On his second turn, he made another couple of small mistakes. When he asked me if he could take them back, I heard the voice of North narrating in my head, dude, once or twice is forgivable, but now you're just taking the piss. Exactly. I told him I'd given him a chance, but as this was a tournament, I wouldn't be allowing him to do such changes after the fact going forwards. He looked at me incredulously and said, really? You're not going to let me move that back? I replied with a, well, sorry, no, and he got visibly upset. Well, I wouldn't have moved that model there if I had known I couldn't do X, he said. Sorry, dude, I shrugged. He huffed and stormed back around the table to continue his turn. This happened a couple of more times throughout the game, each time with him asking me to allow him to redo something and getting annoyed when I declined. Yeah, well, dude, you're at a tournament, I'm sorry. Listen, you've got to play by the game rules that you set out, right? Wild Alaskan here wants to play a narrative game at a tournament. No problem. You can do that at tournaments, no problem at all, right? He wants to have a game with you where he can let you take things back, no problem. It was you who decided to take the game in this direction, so don't bitch and moan when those same rules turn on you and come back and bite you in the arse. I hate players like this. They really irk me. I hate players like this. You want to play the minutia game. You want to play the black and white, let's all get bored game. Of ultimate tactics, of not allowing your opponent to do anything. Well, if we're playing by those rules, mate, no, you can't take that back, because that's not in the rules, and we're playing at a tournament. You want to play like a tournament? Fine, let's fucking play like a tournament. You can't do that, sorry. Right? You did exactly the right thing, man. Exactly the right thing. These are his rules. You can't just change them now that they're not strictly benefiting him. Right? He spent the entire game carefully manipulating the rules to his advantage. For example, he interrupted me as I was about to end my turn after my shooting phase to declare an heroic intervention. I was confused, because I thought I had to charge him in order for him to do that. But no, the rules as written allowed him to do that, and he specifically placed his models just close enough to allow him to get into combat. Every combat, he would carefully spread all of his models out so that they were still in unit coherency, but far enough out so he could consolidate and tie up other units that hadn't been charged. He would pick up my dice, your dice. Why are you picking up your dice? What? Why is he picking up your dice? He would pick up my dice and start rolling them without asking, until I asked him politely not to do that. He never did anything against the rules, and I clearly realised that. But between all of the gotchas and his tedious movements, the game was not fun for me, and I was ready for it to be over by the end of turn 3. Again, I think what you've experienced here, Wild Alaskan, is the very reason why GW are nuking a lot of the gumph that came with 9th edition. But trust me, when we go into 10th edition later on, the gumph will be back, and players like this will be back, right? Yeah. I played on anyway, doing the best I could up until turn 5. He was ahead of me by over 40 points, and there was absolutely nothing I could do to gain any points. So I started my turn and immediately ended it. It went to his turn with him only having 12 seconds left on his clock. He did some quick movements, gained another dozen or so points, and started clearing the table without offering to shake my hand. Yet what a surprise. Who would ever have expected a Custodes player to run out the clock like that? This guy was a douche, man. You're playing a really aggressive army and you're playing like a little bitch, and then you're complaining when somebody else uses your own rules against you. Get out. Get out. Again, I want to be clear that he didn't do anything strictly wrong as far as the game rules or the tournament were concerned, but left such a bad taste in my mouth that I will probably never willingly play against him again. And to add insult to injury, I've just found out while trying all this that he ended up taking first place in the tournament that evening. Maybe I'm just not tournament material, but at least I won $5 in store credit. Dude, you are tournament material. There's no such thing as tournament material, mate, right? If you enjoy tournaments, you're tournament material. That's it. Okay? Alright, this isn't EVE Online. We all know a bunch of, like, try-hard idiots who are trying to, like, ruin everybody's fun for the sake of ruining their fun. Right? This, you know, don't come at me if you're an EVE Online player, but the community was like that for a while, right? So, we're here to have fun, and if you're going to a tournament and you want to have fun, fine. This guy isn't going to a tournament to have fun. He's there playing for blood, and he wants to win. But he's not just winning by being a good player. He's winning by technicality. He's winning by being a coward. And that's the worst of it, right? He's winning by being a coward. And this is why the game has changed so much into 10th edition. Games Workshop want to stop people like this guy. Right? They don't want this in the game. This is why most of the stratagems are going. This is why a hell of a lot of the admin work is going up the game, because they don't want people like this guy in the game. Now, unfortunately, people like this guy drop a ton of money on the hobby. So going forwards, all of the stuff that this guy likes to use to grind people down into boredom so they just give up, right? That will come back into 10th edition later on, unfortunately. It just will do. Because Games Workshop likes money, and they're like milking you every few years for a new edition of Warhammer. But yeah, fuck this guy. You were in the right, dude. You are a tournament guy. Keep going. Just don't play that guy again. Put him on the do not play list and move on. Right. Love you a long time. I will speak to you tomorrow, where I'm going to be doing a little bit of coverage on the old world, and if I think Games Workshop are actually going to bring it back, or whether they're going to be little bitches with it. Assuming you know which one I think I'm going to come down on. Anyway, love you all. See you later. Have a good one. Bye.